Again, thank you all for giving us good questions here to work with. First one we're going to do is the fun one. I had to pluck it out right away. From Gidget Rhinobuns. Which Tolkien race is Middleton, and why is it a dwarf?
I'm gonna have you take this one. Actually, you take this one.
Oh, I'm taking it, or I'm leading it. It's funny because I think that's such a great answer from Gidget Rhinobuns. Just the vibe of Middleton as a person, like he's just like the goofball, right? Like you look at him as class clown. And I actually, if I want to dig deep and give a different answer than was provided by the question asker, this one's going to sound mean, but it's really more just the vibe. I'm going to say he's a troll.
Okay.
And I'm really thinking not to Lord of the Rings. I'm thinking like in The Hobbit, where like you've just got these like goofy trolls who like, yeah, the idea is that like they're big, dumb ogres that like are like don't know their own strength kind of thing. But they're just like so goofy and simple minded and like playful in how they're thinking about everything. And it just like gives me a lot of the Middleton vibes. So I'm not saying he's dumb. I'm more going to those three that are like sitting around the campfire talking about how they're going to like cook up all these people that are sitting there with them. And it's just like the way they're talking about it, just like the relaxed, goofy vibe that they bring feels very Middleton. And I'm only pivoting to that because I think dwarf is actually an awesome answer, even though ironically, like he's probably the tallest guy on the team.
Yeah, it would be more dwarf in personality versus like the size thing. Like that would be.
He's a dwarf troll.
Okay, combination.
There we go.
Like like I think you think of the characters in the movies, and like that personality would fit the dwarf square. Like he would fit that with the smart act comments and like kind of the way he does it. Like that would fit it. Not just the facial hair and all that stuff too, but like overall, I think he would be.
Is he a dwarf-sized troll or a troll-sized dwarf? Which way are we going to do that?
Wow.
I'm going to go troll-sized dwarf so that I'm not saying he's dumb. I like that.
No, it's good. Keep the questions coming.
Give us the Lord of the Rings spins. That's great. All right, we got Big BP55. How alarming is the state of the wild D core now and as they move forward? Spurgeon already out, Brodin, Middleton aren't getting any younger, and Bogosian isn't a long-term answer, and most prospects are years away. Would you consider moving Brodin to a contender to get younger? So several questions layered in there. First, are you worried about the greater overarching D core given the Spurgeon injury and given, not included in this question, but the speed bumps that we saw in Iowa last year with the blue line?
Yeah, like I think if Spurgeon is a long-term issue, I think you'd be a little more concerned because right now you have, Brodin, Faber, Spurgeon, Middleton side long-term. You have Z Byam coming, right? And we all know that Bogosian's not a long-term answer, right? I think you can plug in a Damon Hunt for him or a Chisholm, right? And he could probably fit in that role. So, I don't think Brodin's game's dropping that much in the next couple of years. I think he's still going to be a really reliable, strong kind of shutdown caliber defenseman. So I think with the youth that they brought in already with Faber and Byam, I think that's kind of helped alleviate some of the concerns. So I guess the big question mark here is Spurgeon because has been such a big part of it. Is him being perpetually, if he's injured again and you can't use his cap space against somebody else or whatnot, if you lose him and that cap space is one thing, but I don't want to go too overboard with that because he could be back on Saturday, right?
Totally.
And be playing. And if Jared Spurgeon plays like Jared Spurgeon 2 years ago, I don't think people are complaining about the blue line or saying, oh, how great are they set up now? They have veteran players and then they have these young guys coming up to replace them overall. So,
yeah.
And that's not it. That's not including if the Jack Parts or any of these other guys develop into what they could be. So, yeah, I think I'm not overwhelmingly concerned about the blue line right now. It'd be more so if Spurgeon's injuries were chronic or related to last season, that'd be more of a concern for me. But I think with Faber and Bym coming probably this spring, and Brodin still not losing a step at this point, I think that they're in an okay spot there for right now.
Yeah, and I think it's important too to point out for like some fans that, oh, well, why don't we just throw Spurgeon on LTIR? Like LTIR doesn't let you just like hide someone's cap hit. What it does is let you exceed the salary cap ceiling by the amount of that player's contract. So essentially what you'd want to do is get as close to that cap ceiling minus Spurgeon as possible so that everything in excess doesn't count, right? But letting him sit during the season when you're not getting up to that cap floor, you're not going to LTIR him and you're not getting any cap benefit. And once you're in LTIR, you're not banking any salary cap throughout the season. Like we've seen in the past where it's like, oh, the Wild only have like a couple million cap space, but somehow they've got like 12 million to wheel and deal with that they've banked throughout the season. Right. So just important to layer that out there, because I know a lot of fans just think LTIR means, oh, your cap doesn't matter. And that's not really how it works.
Yeah. Like I think overall, like you said, you can't just subtract his cap hit and then all of a sudden add to it, in free agency. I think, and plus, if you want to put him on LTIR, it means he's out for the season. If you want to add to him, or at least past the trade deadline. So, and I think we're not wanting to jump that far ahead of things. Like he's day to day and could be back Saturday. So until there's an announcement on Wednesday morning that he's out for the season, let's not worry about that for this particular point. But yeah, I think for the big picture concerns about the blue line, I think if he's back to where he hopes to be and he worked his ass off this summer to get back to where he wants, the kind of player he is, then I think that the blue line is in pretty good shape in the short term. And then knowing that they can go draft more to develop behind the Brodin and Spurgeons and Middletons who will eventually age out of the roster.
Yeah. This next one is going to be probably pretty brief because I know you and Russo have already kind of hit on this a bit, but Stephen B., thank you for the question. If the Wild miss the playoffs again this season, should Billy Guerin be on the hot seat? So I guess the question is, should he be versus will he be?
Yeah, because we already know he won't be in the hot seat, right? Craig Leopold told us that there's no heat on Guerin because of this 5-year plan, right? It's only year 2 of a 5-year plan.
Right.
Whether she should be, I think there should be some accountability there. I think he'd be the first to say, anytime you're a GM for 5 seasons, and I guess the lack of playoff success, even though you've had some good regular seasons, a couple 100-point years, there have been some really good times and some really good trades, right? He's made the Brock Faber trade in Fiala and getting over into. He's made the moves to, let's say, I think Middleton was a good trade. A few other things were good ones. So he's made some good moves, but I just think that overall, anytime you're a GM for that long in the same place and you don't have the success you need to, or don't get playoff success there, even though it's not internal heat as far as from the ownership and your job is relatively safe, I think he'd be the first person to tell you that there's urgency to show for their long-term plan in this Kirill Kaprizov for one instance and for free agents, right? Part of their plan is signing free agents next summer, but if him and his group can't prove that they can be competitive and contenders and be 1 or 2 players away, why would those 1 or 2 players want to sign in Minnesota next summer? So I think that's part of the wrinkle of it too. It's less so that he has his job's on the line this year. It's more so of what they can show this year internally and in the playoffs to free agents next year who have all the choices in the world. Other teams that may be able to offer them more money, or you have to choose to play Minnesota and believe Minnesota's a chance to win a championship. So same thing for Kirill. So that's where the pressure, I think, for me would be internally on Bill Guerin.
Yeah, no, that goes right into Joe Campion's question. With the injuries starting out, Will it affect the Kaprizov extension this year? Especially if the injuries are more long-term for key players.
I guess, I mean, it's only would affect it if it's long-term, like career debilitating, I think, right? Like, is it long-term, like a few months, or long-term, like a full season? Like if Kirill's signing here for the next, after 2 years from now, right? His contract up for 2 years. So like, if he's going to look at this team after this year, and like you said, to Mike Russo, my colleague in our story, like he's not even thinking about like 2 years from now. Like he'll probably think about that starting this summer when they can start to talk to him about an extension. But I don't think we're talking about the injuries that we're discussing right now are going to be able to, unless they're career threatening, really going to play into that particular discussion.
Fair. Carter Wetmore brings to us, this season has been a small sample size so far, obviously a couple games in, but are there trends forming that you think will continue? Trends that Carter points out that he sees: Trenin does not pass the eye test, Gus looks great, PK is still leaky.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, when you do trends after 4 or 5 games, they could obviously, sample size could change things in a moment's notice. Like Gustavsson, like you said, is really encouraging the first couple starts as a team that's been kind of uncertain in goal. They've been saying that if a guy takes the net over and can show he can play and be that guy, they'll abandon the 3 goalie plan and just play the guy that gives them a chance to win. They're in that position as a franchise right now to do that. As for Trenin, I think his impact will go beyond numbers. So I think he's still trying to get a feel for how he fits. And I think that line, with him and Foligno has shown some positive steps. Like I don't think he's kind of popped up the page like a Lauco has in terms of some of the plays he's made or some of the consistency and what he's done in different the penalty kill, for example. But I think Trenin's values, they send him for long term as well in free agency. I think his impact will be seen a little more as the season goes on.
Yeah, I would agree though, like with Carter, generally speaking, on Trenin, like he hasn't looked great, but it's way too early to judge on a guy that just came into the organization. It'd be different for me if Trenin was with the team all of last year, right? Mm-hmm. I agree. Like I haven't seen a ton, but I'm not even close to worrying about whether or not Trenin passes the eye test because we're only a couple games in on a guy who's brand new to the roster. Do you have any trends that you've noticed, Joe? Like, is anything that you're seeing early in the season, like, oh, this could develop into kind of being a regular thing?
Well, like I think we mentioned off the top, but just what kind of year Boldy could have. I think the first game or two, just off the charts there, and I don't know where he's going to play as the season goes on with all the injuries. They'll be kind of shuffled here and there, but he has the look to him. Or I think what really, like Mike Russo and my colleague wrote a story about him opening night, where he played in World Championships with Johnny Gaudreau, his kind of idol growing up, and getting a chance to be around him and be aligned mates with him really kind of played a role in him being, I'd say maturing is the wrong word, but he really, I've been around this before in Tampa with Nikita Kucherov, and he got a chance to play with Ovechkin in World Championships. This was after a year in which the Lightning lost to Columbus in the first round, right? And then he won awards and he went to Worlds and he got a chance to be around Ovechkin, and it was like he got a firsthand look of what he does behind the scenes, how he leads, how he's there for teammates and whatnot. And so I think it really kind of helped change him as far as a player and what he does well-rounded wise and what he does off the ice. And I don't know if this is the exact same comparison with Matt Boldy, but I think Matt Boldy being around Gaudreau at Worlds and playing in World Championships and having as good a tournament as he did, and just seeing all that stuff has got to, and obviously the loss of Gaudreau hit everybody hard, but especially for Matt, that's something he's going to carry with him as the season goes on. And so I think when you have a player with that talent and that ability, that confidence level, if you can find something that can kind of provide that spark to take to the next step. And he's clearly a guy who can be, I think, as Bill Guerin predicted, a 50-50 guy, 50 goals, 50 assists. So I don't know if that'll be this season or not, but just from watching early season going, I think he could be have a terrific year. The big impressions for me early on were to figure out the goalie situation and Gus having a great start aside from his goal tonight, deciding who can be the guy that takes the net over. Right. The PK, we mentioned earlier, Kuznetsov and Lako playing well together. And the injuries, there's so many injuries in the first four games is pretty crazy. There have been many kind of disturbing trends as far as individual players concerned. I think it's too early for that. Like what Matt Boldy did, had struggles the first 16 games last year, and then all of a sudden ended up with 30 plus goals. So I think depending on who you're looking at and what their role should be, I think it's where the kind of evaluation point should look at.
Yeah, and I mean on that point too with Gaudreau, awesome tribute tonight by the Blue Jackets for their home opener against the Florida Panthers, which like super unfortunate that Matthew Tkachuk wasn't able to make it with how tight he was with Johnny. But they had the Blue Jackets line up with 4 players at the opening faceoff. The left wing was vacated, won the draw over to that left wing and let it sit there, and burned off 13 seconds from the start of the game, whistled it dead, played again after that. Very unique and pretty cool tribute.
No, I think there's no playbook or game plan for how you handle this type of thing. And Dean was in town. Jefferson was in town for the Wild opener, and I saw what he's done at the end of practice, having a drill that was kind of a tribute to Johnny Gaudreau, where I think if you have a shot from a certain area, and if you miss, you have to do multiple laps versus if you score, you do one lap, or it was some sort of drill like that at the end of practice where they kind of kept his memory alive, aside from like the jersey and the locker on their home and road. And they had Guy Gaudreau at a practice the other day, like it just, there's no playbook for it, but I think they've hit the right notes with what they can do and making sure that the presence doesn't quite overwhelm them day to day, but they don't forget about him. They make sure to kind of even a smaller stint, because it's not going to go away anytime soon. The memories, the loss, and that grief is not going to happen. So why not kind of lean in and realize, how important this player was, these guys, and how they can channel it in the right way. Yeah.
And what a start for his buddy too, who, like, you got to assume Monahan only went there to play with Gaudreau, but he's been a great leader for them there, popped off in a great way. The one that I'll mention briefly, we don't have to sit on it too much, but as far as guys that, like, there's an early trend for me, and shock or whatever, I like the player, but like, this is a very objective stance. Like, I think Marco Rossi looks way more confident. He is not gripping the stick as tight. He's not out there trying to prove anything. Now he's out there having, had the year he did last year as a rookie. He just seems like he's like there and part of the team. He has arrived, and now he's just playing his game. And he hasn't been flawless by any means, but you can just tell there's a different vibe about him than last year, where it's like, you could tell he was gripping it. He was trying to prove something.
Yeah, I mean, he scored a goal tonight, even too, playing with Kaprizov and Zuccarello, and getting the fortunate bounce to him. And he was ready there, Johnny, on the spot to score a goal. And I had a really good conversation with him early in camp, and what last year did for him confidence-wise, to where now he's not even thinking, not even trying to process too much, just letting instincts take over. And we all know what his instincts have done for him in his career leading up to the pro hockey level. So, he learned physically what he can do, how he won't take any shit from anybody, as he told me, being a smaller player. But I think you're right. I mean, he does still have something to prove in terms of getting signed long-term. with the Wild, but I think he's already kind of proven that he's an NHL caliber player. He's proven he's a guy who can play in the top six, even with the Minnesota Wild here. And so I think it's more just continuing that comfort level and kind of taking the next step where I think he said he wanted to score 30 goals, right? Going from 21 to 30 is a big step for him, but getting the time he has or the role he has with this group, it's not out of the question for that to happen, especially if he plays with Kaprizov and Zuccarello longer this season.
For sure. Last one we have here from the mailbag, and then one more we got to throw in for our good friends at Waggle Golf. Hodag fam. At 5v5, whenever a player breaks their stick while hemmed in the D zone, they keep playing, generally ineffectively, until they get a clear. Why not go get a stick or even change and rejoin play? I would think essentially giving up a 10-second power play is better than an extended 5v 4.5.
Well, it's a good question. I guess it depends on where they are too in the game as far as time situation, how much, if there's one goal game, it's a tied game. Also, if they're the long change or the short change where it's all of a sudden go from behind their net, all of a sudden other side of the ice. If you're a D or a forward, a lot of times the forward will give the stick back to the D, right? Or they'll, you'll have guys who are right shots give a left shot stick just because they have that for their net front presence and stuff like that. It is a slippery slope as far as knowing when, and the key is not being in between where you go half to the bench and half stay. Like you have to be committed either way. Either stay in your zone, use your body and positioning. And there's been a lot of guys who had some really good shifts without a stick, right? Either stalling or either trying to find a way to get it out of the zone, kicking it or whatever. But yeah, I don't think there's a correct answer or a perfect answer for it, but I think it's all time situation, where they are on the ice. Usually they have a equipment manager or somebody else ready with the stick right away if they get there. But I think typically, especially if you're already on PK or if you're 5-on-5, I think the question was 5-on-5, so do 5-on-4. But I think the most time the tendency is, especially if you're pinned in, the D zone is for guys to stick it out until they get a break or a stoppage or a way to do it. But yeah, there's no perfect way to handle it. I think guys just kind of are taught certain ways and given game situations what to do. But until you're in that moment where you're like, okay, well, I don't want to leave my guys straight. I can at least be getting in the way. I can block a shot. I can do this. I can do a body check or whatever. So yeah, I don't know if that answers the question, but that's kind of where I see it.
Yeah, and for me, I'm totally with you. Obviously, like long change, you're not going to do it, but it's hard in the middle of play to make this determination. But for me, it's less about like game situation and more about personnel, right? Like, who are you out there against?
Yeah.
Skilled players? Yes, no. Like, can you be more of a deterrent too? Like, there's some guys, if you're a forward, like maybe it's a defenseman on the blue line that you're not worried is going to walk you and your stick isn't really going to matter, right? Get in the way, take the lane. But it is interesting because I get the counter argument here from Hodag fam. Like, can you survive that 10 seconds? Because the bigger thing for me is your team aware? Like, are they going to jump into position right away and be ready? Do you have guys out there that know how to play a 5-on-4, right? And to process all of that on the spot and go, it's tough to make the decision. And you nailed it. You can't be half in, half out. You're either going or you're not going. Yeah. So if you're even second hesitating it, you're staying. I think that's where a lot of players stay, because once you make that commitment, you just kind of got to roll with it. But it's a fair argument. I totally get it. It's just hard to process on the ice.
Yeah, I can see as a fan where it can be frustrating too. You see him like just get off the ice, or like you're in the blue line, top of the blue line, the bench is right there, like do it, So I can see where that comes from. But there's a lot of reading, reacting guys who've done this for a long time, trying to figure that out too from their instincts. But yeah, I think that the time situation, who they're out against, all that stuff plays a role.
Fair. Last one here. This is our Waggle golf question. Everyone go to getyourwaggleon.com. Make sure you throw in promo code SP10 to take 10% off your entire order. If you're listening on podcast, check in the episode description for the link. If you're watching on YouTube, again, link in description too. Joe, I'll lead on this because for you, it's going to be a little bit different for sure, being that you're typically in the press box and I'm one of the degenerates down there with the fans. But we've already done our golf foursomes in the past. Our selection of 4 this time is going to be go-tos at a wild game, concessions. Now for you, that could be what are just your top like concession picks at any sporting event, right? Mm-hmm. I'm going to go specific to the X, and I'll go first just because, again, I've got this off the top. For me, first and foremost, not just because they are a sponsor, but yes, they are, Barrel Theory Beer Company. Their beer is the best beer at the X. I felt that way before they were ever a sponsor, and weird, that's why we pursued them as a sponsor, because why would we sponsor something that we don't believe in? Their crowlers or their raindrops on tap, incredible option. My second one, very slept on. Granted, I hate that they put blue cheese crumbles on it, and I always ask them not to, but buffalo chicken waffle fries. Now, this isn't for the faint of heart. Like, this is one that you've kind of got to be ready for what you're signing up for. There's days where the stomach might just not be prepared for that, but it is a delicious option. For me, for the money and for what it is, I also think it's, I think, newer the last couple of years, but my number 3 is the walking taco.
Okay.
It is really easy to grab and go. You're not going to make a big mess. It's single digit expense, and it's delicious. Mm-hmm. I don't know what more I need there. So a great option. If people weren't aware, like, it absolutely exists and it's incredible. My last one definitely depends on what you're going for. There's different moods, different vibes, but I'll just throw this in because it's a new offering and because it's weird. But this year they have a pickle pizza.
Oh, wow.
There is a slice of pizza, which everyone's seen the pizza slices. Yeah, it's playing off the fair. I don't know why they didn't do it sooner, though. But yeah, I had my first pickle pizza slice at the home opener, and you know what? It was pretty good. So I'll have that rounded out. So I've got any offering of Barrel Theory at the X. We've got the buffalo chicken waffle fries. We've got the walking taco, and we've got the pickle pizza. So, Joe, whether you want it to be about the X or just general concession moves for Joe Smith, give me your 4. What do we got?
Okay, so won't do the X since I don't matriculate down to the concourse as much as I probably should. I think there's concerts I'll do that, but I don't have the experience level there. We have our own kind of setup in the media, so I won't go that route. But I think overall, if I'm at a concert or a Twins game or whatever game I am at, first I'm going to the craft beer section. I'm going to go to Summit or wherever else it is, Barrel Theory, if it would be at the X.
Sure.
Get myself a nice IPA to start the night off with. My wife and I love like nachos or some sort of some sort of pulled pork dish, with something like in baseball, something you eat out of a helmet, right? Something you eat out of a helmet with nachos, right? Something you can kind of nice and hearty to get those snack going. And so I think that would be, you go from IPA to like snack for me. And this is my own psycho ways. Like, I'm a Diet Coke guy, right? And so if I can find a place that has refillable Diet Coke, like kind of like thing, I will find that in whatever concession stand I can find.
Hang on. Have you ever found a refillable pop at a venue like that, whether it's a concert or
they're all the souvenir cups. They all do refills. Yeah.
I am learning this for the first time. People in the comments, like, please tell me, am I crazy for not being aware of this, or is this news to you too? Because I had no idea that they refill
souvenir stuff. They do refills. They will put them on a business, and anytime I will, even it's so yeah.
Joe's goal is to put you out of business.
They should know better than to give refillable Diet Cokes to me, so I'll just send that one. So yeah, IPAs, then like some sort of nacho, things that dip, what kind of thing. And so I guess it depends on what game I'm at, but like for baseball, it's always trying to find the best brat I could find, right? Mm-hmm. Old fashioned Midwest style.
Underrated at the X. They have a jalapeno cheddar like Wisconsin brat or something at one of the
Oh, that'd be
stands
great.
there along the
Yeah.
glass. That it is delicious.
Mhm.
So that's the bridge over. But I'm with you. A brat's a great move.
So I think those are the 3 or 4
That's 4,
there, and then I'm trying to think. And if we're not going fully on food, because I'd heck off some food thing. Mostly I go to the souvenir spot and I just try to find. I'm a big hat guy. I love, I have way too many hats. My wife will tell me we're moving this weekend, so I have a door rack full of hats. So I find some sort of t-shirt or hat that I can remember this certain moment by. So
Nice.
those are some of the guilty pleasures from my point of view.
I love it. And one that I'm going to like support and disagree with. For me personally, this is a personal life choice. I love nachos. I do not want them at a sporting event. Like if I'm out with people and we're like trying to come up with like an appetizer for the table, like great. But if I'm sitting in my seat, there's people walking by me, knocking stuff over. I got to hold it in my lap. I'm not a nacho guy, but I absolutely support the decision to eat nachos. That's just not my setting to do so. I'm not willing to take the risk.
Too much of a mess, right? Yeah.
Yep.
But like I just think they're like a good way to start it off and get a, usually it has like either chili on them or some sort of like a lot of good toppings or like the nacho supreme. So you have all the different like the jalapenos or whatever like that. So I think it's a good way to get something you can shareable, the two of you can do, and then and you guys can both decide from there where to go. Do you go the brat route? Do you go, dessert route? Do you go pizza route? You go whatever. So I think that's kind of where you go.
And the one little caveat I'll throw for the wild games, I don't do it because I think they're a little subpar. But at a Twins game, I'm getting cheese curds. Absolutely. Yeah. I think the ones at the X, meh. Like I'll absolutely eat them, but I'm not seeking them out. But great round there. Again, everyone go to getyourwagalon.com. Throw in promo code SP10. Crush their hunting selection while it's still available. It's awesome stuff if you're into hunting. If you're not, it still looks cool, but maybe it's not your vibe. I get it.